This is the Accounting Talent Podcast with Rob Brown. I'm wondering if accounting is going to die because we haven't got enough talent and the profession is withering on the vine. Jeff Phillips, do you have the answers?
The accounting profession is not going to die, Rob. It's not going to wither on the vine. There is lots of talent out there, and there are options and hope.
Well, we are going to go into that today. It's wonderful to have you on. You're joining me as a co-host for a few episodes now. Jeff, do you want to just introduce yourself for the audience? Because I've got a real live talent expert on here that does this for a living. So tell us what you do.
Hey, Rob, I'm the CEO of Paget. We are a U.S.-based tax and accounting franchise with over 300 offices in North America. So on one hand, I run an accounting firm. But prior to that, I founded AccountingFly, which is a boutique recruitment company about 12 years old now. And we match CPAs with CPA firms and accounting teams with a twist. We only place US-based remote accountants into those employers. I guess I've been involved with over 1,000 hires over the past 12 years. So I have learned a lot about hiring, keeping talent through a lot of trial and error over a decade.
Well, it's great to have you with us because over the next few months, we're going to be going into a lot of the challenges and threats to accounting and diving into where the shortages are coming from and what is going on. But we're also going to be bringing some hope, Jeff, aren't we? That there are solutions to this, working solutions, practical solutions that firms can implement to bring that talent into the firm and get the growth that they want. So a little bit of hope's a good thing, isn't it?
You know, there are challenges. Our value proposition needs work, and there are some labor market issues, but firm owners, partners, CFOs have so many options that they may not be aware of that they can deploy. And we're seeing it play out, Rob, on a daily basis, both at my firm and also at my staffing company.
So in this episode, we're going to outline the problem and talk about the staffing shortage in accounting. I'm going to ask you in a moment, why is there a problem, Jeff? But just for the audience, we're going to put two articles in the show notes. One is from the Fast Company and another is from shrm.org. And these point to the talent shortage with numbers, with statistics. And they are 1 or 2 years old, but it's more prevalent now than it was. So let's dive into that. Why is there a problem with talent in accounting, Jeff?
Our value proposition needs work, Rob. By that, I mean the value proposition the profession is offering talent. And on a firm-by-firm basis, decisions need to be made about how to change that value proposition. So right now, I'd categorize it as weak. And it's not supported well by the fact that we do have fewer people in the profession than we have had in the past. That doesn't mean it doesn't mean that it's a lost cause at all. It just means you've got to change your tactics.
Well, what is the talent value proposition? If I was being really cynical, it is join the accounting profession, work 70 hours, 80 hours a week in a dark room locked to your desk. You might see a client occasionally, but you'll be working with lots of numbers and spreadsheets. I know that's not true, but that is the perception in some quarters. Give us your view of the current value prop for talent in accounting.
So I'll start with what the value prop is I'll start with what the positive is. Accountants are business consultants. Accountants are trusted advisors. This is a profession that is only going to grow in demand. Here in the U.S., there are 31 million businesses. They've all got to pay taxes. They all need financial related insight. They all need advice. They need audits. They need what we call advisory services. The brand of the CPA and the brand of the ACCA, of the enrolled agents, are so trusted compared to other professions. It's a strong brand and a strong market. And as I feel like almost everybody knows that would be watching this or listening to it, where we have a weak value proposition is in compensation, flexibility and work-life balance, being on call versus being off call, issues around remote work that were brought around from the pandemic and were there before. And so the negative value proposition is around a weaker brand, around compensation, around the perception of long hours, perception of it that it's boring, the perception that I'm going to be chained to a desk and doing tax returns for the rest of my career. And I think the perception that I don't have a long-term career path, that it's a great place to start, but we want to get out of it as soon as possible. I think a lot of these are myths, or they are so fixable with just business model changes. But the fact remains, and you'll see in the Fast Company article that you'll put in the show notes, and in the SHRM article, we're losing people, and we're losing people to our competitors. And our competitors are tech companies that offer a different set of employment options than the profession does. We're losing people to in-house positions, and we're losing people to outside of accounting altogether.
When I think of my career, I trained as a maths teacher in the end. I taught secondary school mathematics, but I did start out as an accountant. I took a degree in accounting. I didn't complete it. I do have a diploma in accounting, but back then when I didn't know quite what I wanted to do, I was comfortable with numbers, and I was attracted by the respect of the accounting profession. There was good coin in it, so you knew you would get some good compensation. I was attracted by the rigor of the profession. It was robust and it was hard to get in, so there was kudos there. Also the security. I never heard of unemployed accountants. So we come into it with those expectations. Yes, it's hard work. We don't want it to be a breeze, and there needs to be a barrier to entry. But as you start to compare it to, say, the legal and the medical profession, who study just as hard for the qualifications, you might argue, and other professional services, the accountants seem to be dropping down in compensation. And you're right, there is a leaching out of the profession into industry, into finance, into tech, into doing their own thing, or coming out of the labor market altogether. So the brand of accounting does seem to have a problem. And I'm wondering if that's just happened overnight, or did the pandemic accelerate that? Have we been grinding away at the brand for years? How have we got here?
We've been grinding away at it for years. And I think if you look at the small and mid-market here in the United States, partners are making great money. Owners of small firms are doing okay. But the model has always been, we can hire at a lower compensation, work people very long hours, have pretty stressful careers, and it always worked. And I think what has happened is that the consumer in this case, which is the employment base, they're wising up to it. And they're seeing in high school and in college that yes, it's secure, but it lacks the thrill, or it lacks a long-term prospect, or it lacks, I think just comes down to money sometimes. Why would I spend, over here in the United States, you've got to get a 4-year degree, then you add a master's, and so it's a 5-year degree, so we've got 150 hours, then you sit for the CPA exam to make a salary that is pretty equivalent to a lot of entry-level work, Rob, that doesn't require a master's or the credential. And so I think it starts there. And if you zoom out just for a second, there's a labor problem too that we're dealing with. Korn Ferry is a massive recruiting firm, and they came out with a study in 2017 that tells us that globally, by 2027, there will be 50 million fewer knowledge workers than there will be jobs that are trying to hire them. We're just growing our knowledge work labor. We are growing the knowledge work economy faster than there is a labor pool to fill those jobs. And I used to show that slide at speeches and presentations, and everybody would yawn and say, this doesn't affect me. Well, now we're feeling it. And I think the great resignation that occurred as a result of the 2020 pandemic globally accelerated that. So we have a labor market problem.
That's not just accounting too, is it? To be fair, there are many other sectors that are suffering with that, but equally, there are some sectors that are attracting the talent, maybe from the accounting talent pool, that are doing well and offering a good employee value proposition.
No doubt. It's happening across all sectors, but specifically in accounting, if you think, I can only speak to the United States, but it's probably true everywhere you have listeners. There are about 1.1 million accountants in the United States. There's only 660,000 CPAs, right? And in America, we have about a 3.5% unemployment rate right now. Usually accounting and auditing in America is about half that. So something like 1.5%, 1 to 8%. What that means here is that everybody that wants a job is employed. So lots of your listeners have posted a job on ZipRecruiter or Indeed and gotten a lot of applicants, but no accountants. And that's why. So, what I've learned through this process is the value proposition as an industry is weak, but can be changed. We have full employment. And so what can you change in order to have a successful and predictable hiring result? That's the question that ought to be on people's minds.
Well, let's move to that shortly. I just want to move beyond the emotions that are clearly in this conversation. And you and I speak to a lot of leaders in accounting that talk about the brand and the challenges. Talk to the firm owners that they're wanting to grow, but they can't find the people. But let's put some facts behind this. Just pick out a couple of the stats from this SHRM article and this Fast Company piece that you actually commented on at the time, Jeff. What are some of the headline stats here that we should be mindful of?
Yeah, I thought the SHRM article was interesting. This is the Society of Human Resources Management. It's pointing out there were something like 300,000 accountants and auditors that left their positions over the last 2 years in the United States.
300,000. Wow.
So that's about a 17% loss of employed accountants from its peak of 2019. So you can trace our current predicament to sailing into the pandemic. I think the issues, the value proposition issues, lower wages, longer hours, less flexibility were there and we were complacent, right? But then as you get into 19, 20, 21 and on, that accelerated, that exposed that weakness that we had in the value proposition.
But a lot of people might argue, Jeff, that that's the baby boomers that are leaving, that they're at retirement age, they're selling up, they're moving on. And so naturally, there's going to be that churn. 17% does sound a lot, but are younger accountants leaving too?
You're right, Rob. So a large part of this picture was, I'm a baby boomer, I'm ready to retire sooner than I thought I was going to. But this SHRM article also points out that accountants, between 25 and 50 years of age are leaving the profession at a faster clip than they had ever before as well. It's smaller, right? So that gives us a little bit of hope, but it's still significant. And I think that's where we have to pay attention.
Yeah. Okay. So we know we've got people leaving. There's a stat on job growth as well, that it's 6% a year for the next 8 years. So the accountant numbers are going down and the job vacancies are going up. That's not something that stacks up mathematically.
It's not. This is why that Korn Ferry study was so important. It's telling us as knowledge workers, we're going to have more jobs than we have people to fill them. And that is exactly the case in the United States. And the industry is only growing. The demand for what we do is growing and growing and growing. And the labor pool is sort of staying the same and marginally leaving in the age groups that we are concerned about.
But Jeff, my thinking here is, okay, people leave every profession, every industry, every sector, but there's always people coming through. So are there any barriers to entry that are stopping people taking accounting degrees or coming into public accounting or taking chartered accounting qualifications here in the UK? What's stopping that influx at the bottom end?
So I think that's where we have a brand problem or a value proposition problem, because there's a slight downtick in the number of people that are taking the CPA, sitting for the exam. We know that. And there's a slight downtick in the number of people getting accounting degrees, right? So our supply of talent, of people that we want to hire, is getting a little bit smaller. And yet we're all getting more customers, more demand, not to mention over here in the United States, way more complexity on the tax side. I think what's happening in stepping away from numbers for a second is that college students are just seeing a better career path. And by better career path, I mean better life, a better financial upside, the perks that come with more progressive industries. They're seeing that. They're looking at investment banking. They're looking at consulting. They're looking at going into work in high-tech companies. They're comparing that to, boring old accounting. And so they are making that equation for themselves that I'm better off choosing this more, attractive career path.
Yeah. When we use the phrase the war for talent, traditionally we might say the war for talent is between accounting firms. The Big Four, for instance, always try and cream off the top talent coming out of universities to recruit for their firms. But the war for talent now is that accountants or would-be accountants are looking at different career paths and saying, well, I don't even want to go into accounting. Just like a competitor for Apple is Amazon. It didn't used to be because they were in different markets, but these entertainment providers now are all competitors. Even take a hotel. The Radisson Hotel or the Hilton Hotel is a competitor for accounting firms insofar as people will walk into the lobby and have an experience. They'll have a customer experience. Or if you have a website online, you compete with Amazon because they create an experience for you in buying or seeing stuff online that really, really works. So there's so many competitors out there beyond accounting firms themselves for this talent. And you mentioned consulting. That is a massive one. And these upwardly mobile tech companies, that is another massive one where they can almost be Google-type employers and give you a really interesting, meaningful, exciting, varied career path that accounting, whilst it might do, doesn't seem to be able to articulate.
Accounting is competing against high tech. It's not just firm A is competing against firm B. I mean, we should dig into how to compete. But yes, we as a profession are competing against much more aggressive employers. I'm reminded of a story, Rob. I spoke at a CPA firm conference 8 or 9 years ago and was in a room full of CPA partners at wonderful middle market firms here in the United States. And I wanted to talk about their value proposition to talent. That was what they asked me to come and speak. What I did was I brought in the chief human resources officer of a Silicon Valley startup, a company that's a $1 billion unicorn now, but it plays in the accounting space. And she explained to the CPA partners their policies around flexibility, paternity leave, maternity leave, just general HR policies that inspire trust, general HR policies that are investing heavily in the career path of their people. And I could feel the tension in the room because there was such a large resistance. I remember hearing like audible sighs when she would talk about paternity leave. Who could imagine such a radical idea? And I got up on stage after she spoke. I said, this is who we're competing against. It's not that people don't want to be accountants. It's that we're selling the wrong product. And our experience of working inside your firms is the differentiating factor. How do we sell it better, right? How do we change the experience for the talent? I see a lot of opportunity in that.
In another show, Jeff, I want to talk about the implications for the employers. What does this mean for accounting firms? What does this mean for the future of the profession? And I also want to dip into some of the solutions we will over coming weeks. But just give us a little bit of hope here as we draw to a close on this episode of, okay, there are problems, but some firms are dealing with it. There are mechanisms, there are systems, processes, means by which to bypass, overcome the talent problem. So give us a little bit of hope here.
The CPA brand here in the United States is the most trusted professional brand that there is. There are 31 million businesses and growing. The demand for the accounting services is growing. We work in a phenomenal profession of business advisors and financial advisors.
You're preaching to the converted though, Jeff. All of our listeners, watchers, they know that because they are in this game. We need that message to get to the people that are not in accounting that could be, or considering leaving perhaps.
Well, I think the hope is what we tell and how we communicate our value proposition.
Yeah.
It's to be improved, number one. Number two, there are pockets of talent that American CPA firms are probably not diving into. Pockets like offshoring, which increases profit margins. Pockets like remote work, freelancers. Pockets like not hiring accountants and training them to do the work. I can guarantee you, Rob, that there are accounting firm owners that don't think deeply about onboarding and how to create an amazing employee experience inside their firm so that they stay. I like to call it the new talent stack. I mean, there is just a new way of thinking about who we hire and what we tell them to get them excited about this career journey.
Quickly, if employers don't get talent right, there's a lot of complacency out there. We've got a great firm. We've got a great brand. People will want to work for us. We've been going millions of years, and there is that almost ignorance of the talent problem because they think they're always going to fill vacancies. But that's starting to happen now where it isn't being filled. So the implications for employers are severe now and will get ever more severe, but all for maybe a few brands.
Ultimately, owners of firms care about their enterprise value. What's my succession plan? What will I exit for?
Yeah.
The ability to predictably and reliably hire talent into a firm is one of the value drivers of the exit price of a business. And that's where we've got to work. And there are systems and processes there where you can win. And it directly affects whether or not you sell your firm, whether or not you sell your book of business, your practice, your partnership. So it's critical.
Jeff, we'll sign off there, but give us a flavor of what kind of things we're going to be talking about on the Accounting Talent podcast over the next few weeks, because you've got a whole list of topics, juicy topics that you want to get into and real life examples that are really, really working. So what's on the agenda for our listeners and watchers?
The agenda is, how do we win? And I have the privilege of watching employers win on a daily basis. I'm inspired by their stories, and I appreciate you asking me back to tell some of those stories. But we're going to talk about, who are we hiring? Where are they living currently? How are we going to find them and bring them into our firm and create an awesome culture for them? How are we going to address remote work? What are we going to do about offshoring? How are we going to properly integrate new hires into our teams? In this new hybrid environment, how are we going to make sure those employees that we don't see are productive and we feel confident that they're getting the job done? How are we going to trust those employees? So I think what you'll see is we're going to lay out a sequence of topics that are useful to every employer in the accounting profession, that I hope they feel inspired and confident. And what they do is they take practical checklists from this that will move the needle forward for them on a daily basis.
And you said every employer in accounting. I'm thinking of the succession plan and the way people grow into careers. We're all probably going to be employers at some point. We're building teams, we're building departments and functions and service lines, and we're moving up the career ladder, which means we're more managers, bosses, leaders than at the bottom rung of the ladder. So I guess the target for this show as we build it up, Jeff, is anyone in leadership or would-be leadership positions in accounting.
Anyone that is a leader in this profession is going to have to be involved in hiring, outsourcing, delegating. You can't grow a business without other people, especially in the business we're in. We're not selling widgets at scale. We're selling the time and expertise of professionals, and those professionals are essential to growing our business, accomplishing our goals.
Well, Jeff Phillips, we are excited about you joining us for this journey. We've got so many things to discuss. I'm thrilled that you'll be our co-host. I'm Rob Brown. This is the Accounting Talent Podcast. Weekly episodes coming out every Thursday. Tune in and tell your friends about the show. Also, check out our associate sister show, the Accounting Influencers Podcast. Jeff appears on that as well. We're currently doing a series on the future of accounting. These are 4 personal panels with some of the top experts and leaders, thinkers in the world that have something to say about where accounting is going. And we will touch on a little bit of talent thing, but this is your show to focus on accounting and on talent, the challenges and the solutions. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.